Good Wednesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good day. Browns getting ready for that second preseason game. It'll be at First Energy Stadium. Well, Cleveland Browns Stadium now, as it is known. Downtown against Washington on Friday. Browns back on the practice field out in Berea getting ready for that game. Deshaun Watson finds Amari Cooper 7-on-7 drills. This time still 7-on-7. Little outlet to Nick Chubb. I think we're going to see a little bit more of that. And this time, Deshaun Watson red zone drill finds David Njoku, the tight end. Pretty good looking rookie. Cedric Tillman continues to look good, trying to get ready and earn a role during the regular season. Here, 11-on-11s, Rodney McLeod showing a little veteran savvy, breaks it up. And take a look at this, Juan Thornhill gets the interception of Deshaun Watson. So the defense continues to play pretty well as they are getting ready for that second preseason game against Washington Mariners. Let's welcome in Jacob Roach, BrownsWire.com. Jacob, the defense playing well is not a bad thing. It's been pretty back and forth, and that's good. You want that competition.
Yeah, you want to feel like that one side's not winning because the other side's just bad. So when you got a defense playing at a really high level like they do right now, when the offense does do good things, that's saying something. When the defense does something, it's saying, it goes both ways. I was at Monday's practice. The offense seemed to outperform the defense, but defenses typically are a little bit further along than the offense. And we've seen in years past where it was all just one side, and we're seeing back and forth between two very talented sides of the football with the Browns. And I, for one, am happy to know that on a daily basis, both are living up to their hype and just kind of give and take. You know, that old saying, iron sharpens iron. I think that really applies to this training camp period.
So Kevin Stefanski ended all of the speculation finally today. Deshaun Watson will, in fact, get the start and play in that preseason game against Washington. Watson talked about that and what he's looking for.
It doesn't even matter to me. I'm a competitor, so however long he wants us to play, I'm going to go out there and compete for that length of time, and we'll see what happens.
It's been a long time since fans have seen you play a game. What should they expect?
Really just don't expect anything, really. I mean, the biggest thing is just really go out there with an open mind. So, like I said, it's still very basic on what we will show, what we won't show. And the biggest thing is just operational and just going out there and compete and just kind of get ourselves ready for that September 10th. And
again, Jacob, it's not the same as regular season, but it's the next step, in trying to get, the quote-unquote rust shaken off, get him back in preseason now. He's had a lot of time to work with his teammates and in this system.
Yeah, and I think what I kind of got from what he said was it's still a work in progress. So if they go out there and they don't just light it up, I think he's trying to temper some of the expectations, because people rightfully so should be excited to see these starters, to see Watson in this new look offense, to see Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore and David Njoku and all these weapons they have on offense. I know when I got that news earlier this morning that he'd be playing, I was excited, but I think the point is, hey, it's going to be very vanilla. It's going to be very basic. It's just going to be about getting reps. And I think it's really the way to go, because you don't want to show anything in the preseason that you're going to really focus on in the regular season and give extra tape to any of your upcoming opponents. But there's this situation with that offensive line that has to learn to be able to block for the style of quarterback Deshaun Watson is. He's going to extend plays, and not just that they need to hold blocks better. Instead of being right behind him, he might be off to the left scrambling or off to the right. And you saw that late in the season where they just weren't prepared for that style of quarterback. And I think even if it's 10 to 15 snaps, which is kind of where I think it will be, maybe 20 snaps, I think that getting those reps against players that aren't on your own team really starts to build just the basics. They're just looking to build the basic building blocks and try to, kind of build a nice foundation.
So Kevin Stefanski said everybody who is healthy will dress. Wouldn't go into detail about who might or might not play, meaning Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, those kind of guys. But he did talk about just how much playing time the quote-unquote starters will get.
We kind of have a number of plays in mind, but want to see how those drives go. Similarly, defensively, I mean, if you get 2, 3 and outs, you're going to be tempted to pull everybody. So it's really just dependent on the if you're getting what you want accomplished. I mean, we did last week. I told you guys just with the screen game, we wanted to get that going. Toss cracks. So there's always different elements of your install that you may want to see, and that's no different in this game. There are certain things that we want to get some game reps on.
And Jacob, I don't need to see Nick Chubb carry the ball in preseason. I don't need to see Myles Garrett rush the passer in preseason. But I am kind of curious. If you're doing something specifically new offensively, you do want to go at it full speed against somebody that doesn't know what's coming. At least a couple of times, and you build on it from there. But I'm curious to see some of the formations early that they use.
Yeah, I mean, he ran 15 screenplays last week after talking about it and leading up to it. Yeah, I think that the blueprint that you saw with them last year against Jacksonville, he played more series, more snaps, just solely based on they weren't good. Like they were 3 and out, turning the ball over, and it wasn't good, so you got them more reps. But yeah, I think you could really start to see some of the basic concepts that we already saw last week. They're evolving this offense. And one thing I saw from them in the shotgun was diversity in shotgun run game. Typically they just run pin pull. That is what they did all of last year. It's so predictable, and that's why it didn't work. We already saw last week them run almost as much inside zone out of the shotgun as they did last season combined. So I think you're going to see, I don't know what it's going to be, but I agree with you. I think it's going to be one of these new aspects of the game, like the zone running. I think you will probably see some of Elijah Moore in the backfield, especially because I don't think Nick Chubb will play, and Jerome Ford obviously is sidelined. So they may put Elijah Moore out there a little bit earlier than we expected in the backfield to kind of try to get some of that where he's kind of out of position and try to wear that rust off, and just the things that are going to be different. I think you'll see some RPOs. I think you'll see some zone reads. The things that they had to abandon last year because the offensive line skill positions they hadn't been practicing it with Jacoby Brissett. So I think expect some of that. A lot of the different aspects of the run game, I think, is probably where they'll focus, and just a lot of that stuff that's specifically targeted to the style of quarterback that Deshaun Watson, Josh Dobbs, and DTR are.
So we know that Jerome Ford will not play in this game. Kevin Stefanski said he was week to week, really wouldn't go any deeper in detail than that. Aaron Wilson, NFL reporter, tweets this out. Browns to work out former Colts running back Jordan Wilkins, per league source. Wilkins rushed for over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns in his career, 41 catches, 262 yards. A lot of that with the Colts. He was kind of in that mix with Nakeem Hines, and he was like the third wheel in there. Who do you think some running back replacements are? Should the Browns decide, and I'm not saying they're going to go down that road, should they need to go down that road, who are some of the names that you think would make sense?
I think if you're looking on the free agency market, I think J.D. McKissic is the guy that you got to look at. He's an excellent fit into the style of offense that the Browns run, and very similar skill set to like a Jerome Ford. So if you're looking for a straight up replacement, I think J.D. McKissic makes a lot of sense. I don't see a big name. They're not getting Dalvin Cook. I don't think they go after Zeke Elliott. I think his best days are far behind him. But I personally think Dalvin Cook's either going, I think, to Miami or New York. So I think you could potentially get a running back from one of those teams. Maybe Michael Carter would be pushed down to the third running back role in New York. If Dalvin Cook went there, you could probably get a conditional 6th or 7th round pick to get him. Same with down in Miami. You've got Jeff Wilson as well as Myles Gaskin behind both Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. I blanked on that name for a second. But So you're seeing some of these places that have 2-3 real good running backs. So if you could throw a pick and get like Jeff Wilson or Michael Carter, I think that would probably be the route that I would go over some of the veterans that are out there. But if he's only going to miss a week or two, and that's kind of what I think they're saying, then I think Demetric Felton, John Kelly, Elijah Moore, I think you could get by with those guys behind Nick Chubb for a couple of games.
Yeah, and Hassan Hall, you got the undrafted rookie free agent as well. So, yeah, it makes sense. And if they bring somebody in, McKissick makes sense, or it's going to be a young guy. They're not going to bring anybody in as a stopgap, because you're going to rely on Nick Chubb for a lot of that. Jacob Roach and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit about Cade York. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Do you see the Browns bringing in any competition for Cade York? It seems like they haven't had luck drafting kickers, and they just keep drafting. So do you see them bringing in competition for him, or do you think it's his job no matter what? Just like to hear your thoughts. And another thing is, if the Browns are going to draft kickers or get kickers, why wouldn't they get a kicker from somewhere out of the Big Ten or the Midwest somewhere that kicks in the weather that the AFC North plays in? Because it seems like the kickers they drafted from Arizona State, Oklahoma, and now this kid, it's like they have a hard time kicking in the weather. Just like to hear your thoughts. Go Browns. Woof, woof, woof.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jacob, I think if they were going to bring in a kicker for competition, they would have already done it. But that doesn't mean if Cade York doesn't improve that they won't switch it out. They can't. You can't be missing field goals and losing games by special teams when you expect to do what the Browns expect to do.
There's too much riding on this season for it to fall apart because of a kicker. Like I love Cade York. I'm excited. I think he's got all the leg talent in the world, but there's something going on either in his head or with his mechanics to where when he kicks the ball, it looks like it's fine. Then it starts moving as it gets towards the end of it, meaning he's striking it incorrectly. I don't know if Bubba Ventrone can fix that, but I'm very concerned that he has the yips and that it's just kind of in his head. And he just has to fight through it. But if there are struggles on Friday, I think you could absolutely see them bring in competition. I don't know that it would be like going out there and getting a big name like I know Robbie Gould is still out there, so maybe they wouldn't go out and do something like that. But you're looking at, if he goes out there, even if he makes all of his kicks, that second kick that he made, it was that first extra point. It barely was made. If you see a couple of kicks like that again this Friday, I would 100% bring in competition because he's got all the leg talent in the world, but that doesn't mean anything if you just can't do it on game days. He can do it all the time in practice, but once he gets into those stadiums, there's something going on between the ears.
So here's what York has done relative to the rest of the league. This is again from Jack Duffin, Orange and Brown report. Overall, 85% is what kickers make. York 75. Between 20 and 29, he made them all. 98% is the most. These are concerning numbers when you get to 30 to 39, 75%. NFL average is 92. 40 to 49, NFL average is 81. York made 75. 50 plus, which, as you mentioned, he has the leg strength to do it. 57%, and NFL average is 69. So again, all numbers kind of reinforcing what you said. If it doesn't improve, they're going to have to, you got to do something. You can't just sit there and say, well, he'll get better.
Yeah, and I think that you're not even asking him to be Justin Tucker. You're asking him to be what you just pointed out, league average. That's all you need to be, because league average, 85% of kicks, I will take that all day if we can find a way to get there. But the things, I'm not too concerned with like 45 yards or over 50. Like those numbers, I can understand. There's a lot of things that have to go right to make some of those kicks. But if it's under 40 and you have the rate that he has compared to what the rest of the league, like under 40 should be a chip shot for a professional kicker. And I don't know how you can expect, as you said, to do the things that the Browns want to do if you're not making league average. I think that they are very bullish on their draft picks, and because of the talent, a lot of times they try to give them more time. But I just don't think you have time to, just because he was a draft pick, I don't think you have time to try to let a kicker develop and just kick his way through struggles this year. They just don't have that kind of time. Well,
and to your point, the leg talent is there, but something just isn't quite translating on game day. Edge rusher injuries to Alex Wright, Isaiah Thomas. Are they reason to panic? I mean, young guys, arthroscopic, they'll miss some time in the regular season. Both of them had arthroscopic surgery past week.
I think you can be upset about it, but I don't think it's reason to panic. Like, it's just less than ideal, I think, is kind of where it is. Just Isaiah Thomas was fighting for his spot on this roster. Some people had him on the roster, some people didn't. So I like Isaiah Thomas quite a bit, but maybe he was kind of a fringe roster player, so maybe that kind of works itself out. But with Alex Wright, I thought he played really well last week. That's why it's a little upsetting. But the top three in that room, Zadarius Smith, Myles Garrett, Ogbo Okoronkwo, they're going to get a vast majority of the snaps. And that's three players, which means they're not on the field at all times, which means you can still rest guys with just those three, missing Alex Wright, that sort of thing. And I think Isaiah McGuire, I like him a lot, the rookie out of Missouri. I think he can give you enough. Just probably like 15 snaps is about what he'll be playing. And I think he can give you enough to get you for the first month. If they can be back after the week 5 bye, I think everything will be okay. Sam Kamara may sneak onto the roster. The edge rusher used to play for the Bears, and I think he could potentially give you some good snaps in there. But if it's a month or less of the regular season, I think the room is constructed good enough to where they'll be very productive, and you have enough depth that barring another injury, that I think you'll be okay.
Well, you mentioned Ogbo Okoronkwo. He talked about finally getting to face a different team other than his teammates coming up Friday, as well as playing with Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett.
We're ready to go against guys that aren't on our team, for sure. Yeah, it's a special group, just playing with those guys, seeing how they rush the passer, I see how I rush the passer and how it all meshes. It's been really cool to see, and also getting to learn from those guys. They've had a lot of success in this league, so any tidbits they can give me, I'm listening.
And Jacob, I've said this a couple of times. I'm anxious to see what do you do? I mean, Okoronkwo is as quick off the ball as Myles Garrett. You don't have two tackles probably on any team that are equipped to deal with both of them.
No, I do not think that even the best lines of the Browns don't. We've seen that in training camp. The Browns have one of the better offensive lines and two pretty good tackles with two really good guards in between them, and they have not been able to handle the pass rush. And they know what's coming because they're playing on the same team. Like, no, the explosiveness and even putting Zadarius Smith on the inside, they all three are just such sudden athletes off the line of scrimmage that they can zip by you and you don't even realize they're gone. I'm with you 100%. I am so excited. I don't know that Miles will play. It'd be interesting to see if he plays. But Okoronkwo is a guy that I just feel like he got lost in the shuffle after they got Zadarius Smith. Because when they signed him, I thought he was starting opposite Miles. And I was like, that was fine with me. Sounds great. Now you put him down as a situational third pass rusher on the team. And you're just like, oh, so you're going to bring an excellent athlete onto the field for obvious passing downs who's fresh? Yeah, okay. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, and you know, if you're a quarterback, you might want to get a good night's sleep before you're playing the Browns' defensive line this year, because you're going to be moving around a little bit. Jacob Roach and I are going to step aside, take another timeout, other side of the break. Top 5 quarterbacks who could potentially get into the top 10 from a national ESPN analyst. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com. ESPN's Mike Greenberg from Get Up. Top 5 quarterbacks who could break into the top 10 this season. He has Trevor Lawrence number 1 and Tua number 2.
Deshaun Watson feels like an obvious one. I put him at number 3. There are so many parts of this story that have nothing whatsoever to do with football. But if he recaptures 75% of what he was at his apex, he's definitively one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the sport. He might have been in the top 2 or 3 when last seen in Houston. So he's at 3.
And Jacob, the thing that I keep scratching my head about is people are talking like Deshaun Watson is coming off a catastrophic injury, or is 35 years old and declining. I don't know why, and I would say, show me somebody who made 3 Pro Bowls his first 4 or 5 years in the NFL, missed some time, and then fell off the face. I can't think of anybody who that applies to. That's why I don't understand people who don't think he's going to at least get back to near what he was.
Right, and I think a lot of times about like Michael Vick's situation. He was away for so long as well, and when he came back, he was a backup to Donovan McNabb at first, but he needed some time to shake it off, and then he got one of the first $100 million quarterback contracts. You know, he recaptured that because again, it was terrible off the field stuff, but none of it was dealing with his health in terms of his physical health. Like you said, he's not coming back from a pair of ACL tears or, blowing out his shoulder 2 or 3 times. I think that we live in this like recency bias world when it comes to sports, and a lot of people just can't get past the 6 games last year because they just weren't up to par with who he had been. But if you go and you watch these games and you compare some of them to what he did in 2020, you'll see that though the stats didn't skyrocket towards the end of the season, he did get better. You did see more of Deshaun Watson from 2020. You saw him extending plays. You saw him running for touchdowns. He was able to kind of shake some of that rust off. But I get that those games were really bad, but just go watch his 2020 tape. If you just go and you watch that, and you cannot, like you said, you cannot convince me that guy doesn't exist anymore. He led the league in passing yards. He completed over 70% of his passes. And that was with a really bad offensive line and not that many weapons. So he's going into this season with a better offensive line, better weapons, a full off season, and all his offense completely tailored to him. Unless he gets hurt, I can't fathom a season where he's not really good.
Yeah, he didn't have DeAndre Hopkins that 4-11 season, so just remember that. The other thing, he was 3-3 in those 6 games. He didn't play well. The team was 3-3. The Texans were 3-3 when he finally got onto his field his rookie year. He followed up with an 11-5 and a 10-5 record because he missed a game, and then he had the 4-12. So this is a guy that usually wins games. He finds a way to help his team win games minus that 4-12 season. We touched on this a little bit earlier. Chemistry with the offensive line is going to be important. Watson talked about that today.
Great. I just try to play off them, and, I let the guys know that, I'm just going to, you block your assignment and I'm going to do, I just make you right. And, sometimes the defense get it, sometimes we don't. That's part of the game, that's part of football. But, we've been able to adjust to each other, and they know exactly where I'm going to set up and how I'm going to react in certain situations, so it's been good for us.
And those are the timing things that he didn't have last year. Very different. Jacoby Brissett, very different. And as an offensive line, you got 5 guys that now, those are some of the reasons for, and he didn't have a chance to work with his pass catchers for 11 weeks. Those are some of the things you saw in the 6 games he played last year.
Yeah, you basically tried to completely redo the wheel in terms of the offense when he came back. They're like, oh, we'll start running RPOs and zone reads and some things that this offensive line has not done for the past 3 seasons under Kevin Stefanski. And it just happens, and I think that it was just such a stark contrast to what it had been prior to that realistically, we shouldn't have expected more, but we wanted more. And I completely understand the fans that were upset with what they did get. But I think that this team, you've seen the Greenbrier, they're trying to build chemistry. I was listening to a podcast today, somebody was pointing out, you can see this team growing close in that preseason game last week. Whenever there was a big play, they were going crazy. They got flagged for too many people on the field celebrating at the end of the game. And I think that goes back to the offensive line. It's just all of them are figuring out, hey, this is our guy, and they've had all offseason to do it. This is how he's going to play. This is what we need to do differently. And they got Bill Callahan leading the charge. And I think you get these reps in here in the preseason, I think they're going to be just fine.
So I know you wrote an article about this. 5 players to watch in Friday's preseason game. You've got defensive end Sam Kamara, who you mentioned. Wide receiver Austin Watkins, have liked what I've seen from him. Siaka Ika, another guy. Saw him take on a double team and make a play. Go figure. DeJuan Jones and running back John Kelly. So take us through some of those and just the thoughts there.
The thing I really like about Sam Kamara is he's got kind of that same build and skill set as Alex Wright. So really, most of these guys I'm looking at on Friday are guys that have opportunities because of other injuries at their position. Sam Kamara, he plays pretty good. If you look back at some of his PFF data, he's a very good run stopper, which is what Alex Wright was. He's big enough to go on the inside. He had a 72 pass rush grade in the Hall of Fame game, and he popped on film a couple of times. So I just kind of want to see, hey, can you continue to do that and maybe fill that role if Alex Wright's out a couple of games? I was at practice on Monday, and Austin Watkins mossed a couple of people, like went up, climbed up top over the DB and pulled it down. And he's big, he's physical, he's reliable, and he runs a 4.5. So like, you don't think he's a blazer, but his short area quickness and acceleration off the line of scrimmage is pretty nice. That screen pass that he housed last week, I was, okay, you have my attention. So can you keep doing that? And yeah, you touched on it with Siaka Ika, man. He did something that we didn't see last year. That was a run stuff on 3rd and 1. They stopped it. And I know that's just one play. He made a handful of other plays. but that's all he needs to be, I think, as a rookie. And so I just give me some more of that, but I was very encouraged with him. John Kelly is an interesting player just because another injury to the running back room. He's been around forever. He's a powerful guy. He showed more patience and vision than I thought he had in recent years. And, can he be the guy that actually is your third running back? And maybe Demetric Felton's the backup while Jerome Ford's out. Take opportunities that's in front of you. And with DeJuan Jones, I just want to see more of what I saw last week. We talked about off the field conditioning, weight, how much does he love it? He goes out there, plays 74 snaps and doesn't allow a pressure. And if they can fix some of those things in the run game, I just want to see growth out of him. And when he gets his hands on you, he's just an absolute problem. And I just want to see some more growth from some of these young guys.
He's 6'8", like 360, 370. You can't teach that. And you know what? There is not a defensive lineman that wants any part of that, getting their hands on him. The thing about Kelly, they've kept John Kelly around on the practice squad. They must like what – you don't do that and they haven't gone out and got somebody. John Kelly's going to get the opportunity to carve out a role here, I believe.
Yeah, and he showed that he can be very effective in the screen game last week. They ran quite a few screens to him, and he really showed great, he allowed everything to set up in front of patience. There we go. He showed great patience and allowed the blocks to come together and bobbed and weaved through them on the screen game. And that's kind of what I think they want out of their second/third running back, is a guy to catch the passes out of the backfield and be a good pass protector. And John Kelly's a bigger running back with good strength. I think he can easily take on some of those blitzers on third downs when you keep him in. And yeah, you do not keep a dude around for 3 years because you don't like him. I've been surprised he never got signed anywhere else, but here's the opportunity he's probably been waiting for the last 3 years. And he's a hard worker, and hopefully he can on Friday go ahead and grab the bull by the horns and prove that he can be that guy while Ford's out.
Jacob Roach, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, Jacob Roach, make sure you check him out, brownswire.com. Always really good and interesting stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily straight ahead. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Adam Rank writes for NFL Media's Fantasy Live. He also does a podcast breaking down how he thinks the Browns' 2023 season will play out game by game.
But a win over the Steelers, a season sweep. I know it's very unusual, but a season sweep over the Steelers, a loss to the Denver Broncos, win over the Rams. I know that Jacksonville is going to be a tough team this year. I'm going to go loss here. Loss to the Chicago Bears as Justin Fields makes his way back to Ohio. And you got the Houston Texans. I got a couple of losses right here before closing it out with a win over the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the struggle continues. There is still a lot of uncertainty with the Cleveland Browns, and I think they're going to struggle. And I think it's just 6 wins in Cleveland this season.
Okay. With insight like that, Adam is always welcome in any of my fantasy football leagues. There aren't a lot of guys who are easy marks in our leagues. So let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. Losing to the Houston Texans, you wanted to talk about this one. I kind of saw it and was like, good Lord.
On one hand, he has the Browns going 4-2 inside the AFC North, including a sweep of the Steelers. But then outside of that, and a 4th-place schedule, and playing the AFC South, mind you, which is objectively down, going 2-9. And you mentioned the Texans. They had them losing the game before that to the Bears. That's, to me, 6 wins. I think Josh Dobbs gets you 6 wins. I think that's on the table for him. I don't see a way in which this team has that low of a floor.
Yeah, again, if you want to, I get being skeptical, but if you look at this roster and think that there's only 6 wins in that, I do want you in any fantasy football league where you have to pay a fee to enter.
Yeah, I think this is just a classic case of scouting the helmet. You're definitely not breaking down the roster objectively if you think this team's only taking home 6 wins.
Yeah, or you're just trying to say something to get a reaction. So yeah, it's probably getting a lot of reaction. You're getting some reaction. Yeah.
A lot of bookmarks.
So Denzel Ward, on what he has seen so far from Deshaun Watson in training camp.
Sean, he's elite. I mean, you see that out here every day. I mean, you got to be in perfect position to make a play on that ball. He's putting the ball where it needs to be, really where only the receiver can make a play. So it's making us better, making the offense better. So definitely glad he's on our team and looking forward to continue to compete against him.
And he's one of an AFC that's loaded at the quarterback position. In your division, you're going to see a number of them. What excites you about the challenge of the guys you'll face this season?
Just going out there and competing, just the competition level that the division brings, and just going out there and try to get a win.
And Casey, the division and the AFC are loaded without question. But you keep hearing, the defense will have the better of it this day. The next day, it's the offense that has. Those are good things. Those are what you want to hear from good teams.
Yeah, and typically when Denzel gets in front of the media, he doesn't give you much. He kind of gives you a lot of team speak. But when he talks about what he's seeing out of Watson, I mean, that's because every time we see a clip of him going up against Moore, I mean, it's tit for tat. And usually Denzel has really tight coverage, and if he gets beat, it's by a better throw. So he's getting firsthand, just an account of what Watson is capable of. So I like to think that you're getting a genuine reaction out of Denzel when you bring up Watson's name, because he's seeing it every day in camp.
And you know what? That's going to make them that much, both sides of the ball. It'll make both sides of the ball that much better.
Yeah, it's the classic iron sharpening iron. And, like you said, you don't want it one-sided. Typically the defense is a little ahead of the offense. Well, both these units are kind of coming in fresh because the offense is being overhauled, and this is a whole new system for the defense. And it's just you're seeing athletes going against athletes, Sometimes it's not even the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. And both sides are high up in talent, and you're seeing them go head-to-head, and they're only going to get better from doing that.
So NFL executives weighing in on which coaches enter 2023 on the quote-unquote hot seat. This is from FanBuzz. They go with Kevin Stefanski, NFC coach. Kevin Stefanski was the first name on my list. The Browns have had a loaded roster the last several seasons, and they just don't win. I think more than anything, Casey, to me, that says how important the quarterback position is.
Yeah. Yeah, this will be the season for which he's judged. If you look at everything when everything was even and he had a healthy quarterback for a full season, they went 11-6. Following year, starting quarterback gets an injured shoulder. His play just falls off a cliff, And then last season you had Jacoby Brissett for 11 games and Watson for 6. It was discombobulated, So I think there's a massive disconnect between the national perception and what's really going on inside the walls of Berea. Now, I'm not saying that he couldn't wind up on a hot seat. I'm saying he's not starting the season on a hot seat. This is the season for which he will be judged.
I would agree. I mean, and this is not going to sit well with a portion of the fan base. What's Baker Mayfield done since he left here?
Bounced around.
He is fighting Kyle Trask for the starting quarterback position with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker's starting Friday. Kyle Trask is starting game 2. It is a true quarterback competition. So
yeah, the depth chart says it all.
And so think about Kevin Stefanski with him at quarterback. Now, Kevin Stefanski had COVID, but they won a playoff game.
Yeah. Yeah, and they stacked 11 wins. Now, and a lot of that's situational. Like they played the AFC South that year, and then NFC East that was down at the time. But, you got to win the games, and they were able to put it together. And coming on a COVID year where they really didn't have a preseason, they were still able to do that. To me, that's impressive. And that has to be the bar for this season as well. I think that anything less than double-digit wins is a failure.
Yeah, and again, they have to win. Everybody has injuries. You got to find a way to win. This is from Sports Illustrated. 3 bold player predictions for the Browns in 2023. Deshaun Watson throws for 4,500-plus yards. David Njoku catches 80-plus passes. And Grant Delpit becomes a Pro Bowl player. Case, I don't know if they're going to throw the ball a whole lot more than they did. I don't know if they're going to throw the ball enough for Deshaun Watson to get 4,500 yards. You still have Nick Chubb that you're going to turn around and give him the ball some.
That's immediately where my mind went. It would be the second most passing yards he's ever had. He had 4,800 in 2020. But that was with them being down in the fourth quarter of all their games and him having to throw back into it. I just think the game script's going to play out different this year, and they're going to find themselves with some leads in the fourth quarter where they're not just tossing the ball over the field. I don't think he'll have the opportunity to throw for 4,500. It could have happened, absolutely. He's got that kind of talent. But I think something in the 3,800 to 4,000 range is probably more feasible.
I agree, and I don't see Njoku's probably the third on the list. You got Cooper, you got Elijah Moore, then Njoku. So 80 maybe, but that's an awful lot. Grant Delpit, I think the player's there. I think he does have that potential.
Yeah, when it comes to Njoku, he's only had over 80 targets twice, and we're going into year 7. So the numbers he would have to pull in 80, I think his career high for receptions is 58. I also don't think the volume will be there. Like you said, I think it's going to go through Cooper, Moore. I think him and DPJ might kind of be similar as far as target share, but I just think the opportunity is there for him to haul in 80. He could still have an amazing season and only catch 60 balls, But for Grant Delpit, he's viewed nationally, I think, a little different than we view him. I think he's one of those players that we kind of always feel like he was a first rounder, even though he wasn't. So there's always been this massive expectation on him, and then to come out and blow his Achilles out, and he's never really put together a consistent season. He's came on strong both of the last 2 years towards the back half. If he's able to do that for a full 17, he could definitely find himself in the Pro Bowl.
Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Deshaun Watson and Agbo Okunrankwo. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Deshaun Watson met with media today. Talked about facing a Jim Schwartz defense each and every day in practice.
Very intense, very sharp, very skilled, coached very well, very disciplined. From the DBs, who's playing very, very tight coverage on the receivers. So there's got to be, tight throws inside the, windows. You got the linebackers that's smart with AWOC and JOK and Jordan and, all the other guys. And you got the front that's very aggressive and very fast and strong and big. So, it's putting us to test and it's going to help us for the long run. So it's glad to be able to go back and forth and compete, and we want to do the same for them.
And Casey, we heard Denzel Ward talking about Deshaun Watson. Now we hear Watson talking about the defense. That's a sign of a good team.
Yeah, it is. And one thing he can't talk about is he's not allowed to get hit. So the defensive line is not really a factor. When you're seeing a lot of these highlights, Miles is having to pull up and just not touch him. And if this were a regular season game, it would be a much different outcome. But it's just, when you go get a guy like Deshaun Watson, like you're expecting him to elevate everything around him. And same thing when you go get a coordinator like Jim Schwartz. You're expecting him to be able to elevate the players on his side of the ball. And that's exactly the expectation for this season because the talent's all there. And you see that the back end, the defensive backs for Cleveland can straight up cover, and it's going to be a chess match day in and day out. And the more they're able to go against good on good in practice is only going to pay dividends later. Next week, I think when they go to Philly, they're going to do this exact same thing with the Eagles. And after going up against themselves for 3 weeks before they go to Philly, by the time they cut out of Philly, they should be ready for the season.
You bring up the joint practices with the Eagles. Very curious to what we hear coming out of that because a year ago you kind of heard some things that, the Dolphins are ahead of them. They had just practiced with the Dolphins. So I'm curious what it sounds like this year coming out of those joint practices. Another guy, Agbo Okunrankwo, talked about playing in Jim Schwartz defense.
It's almost like sometimes you think like do I have too much freedom? You get to just play at your best. Do all the things that just accentuates your skill sets the best. So it's been really fun.
You know what? If you're a quarterback, do you really want to hear big guys that are fast saying they have hey, I think I have too much freedom?
Yeah, they're just having fun on that side of the ball. And for Agbo, this could have been a different situation, Before they signed Za'Darius, he was the de facto starter opposite of Miles. Now with Za'Darius coming in, his opportunities are going to be lessened, but they're going to be quality opportunities. He had a really high pressure win rate last year. And to know he's going to be that third guy, just to be good. That's what he's going to come in just to do, just to scream off the edge and get after quarterbacks. If you're a pass rusher, man, that's the best feeling in the world.
Well, the other thing is you keep those three guys a little fresher. So in the fourth quarter, they can have a bit. If you take 8 snaps away from them through the first 3 quarters, think about what you're going to be in the fourth quarter, because offensive linemen, they're not usually rotating in.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you got to think about these first few games if they're going to be without Alex Wright. Those 3 are going to have to carry it for those first couple games. So just making sure that you're keeping them as fresh as possible is going to be of the utmost priority. And someone like Agbo is probably going to see a little more run in those first couple games just because of that fact.
All right, so this is a tweet from Jack Duffin, Orange and Brown Report. Heard a lot about Jim Schwartz training camp having 5 defensive linemen. Rewatched the Hall of Fame game. It was 4 and rush 4 throughout the game. Playing vanilla during the preseason, or take coach's comments with a pinch of salt. We will find out week 1. I honestly think Jim Schwartz was telling you the truth when he said they're going to play 5. They're not going to show you that. They want Joe Burrow and that offensive line to look at that and go, what are we doing? Yeah, who's doing what and when?
And I think Schwartz feels the freedom to be able to do that because he trusts his guys in the back end. Because he trusts the quality players he has in the secondary, he feels like he can really go after quarterbacks and bring 5. Now, the beautiful thing is we don't know what that looks like. We're not going to know what that looks like until it actually happens. We can all speculate, but I think it's going to come from a variety of areas. And with Alex Wright and Thomas being out might hinder that a little bit. But overall, I think that he's telling you the truth. I just think as Browns fans, we're probably jaded because for years we heard Joe Woods talk about playing 3 safeties and we never saw it. So it's easy for us to be like, oh, okay, yeah, we believe you, Coach.
Well, I think Jim Short's the kind of guy that he's not afraid to tell you okay, this is what we're going to do. It's up to you to figure out how to stop it. Having said that, you want there to be all kinds of adjustments that are being made week 1 on the fly.
Yeah, they're not going to show their hand. Why would they? They're probably not even doing it during the media portion of practice. I don't think anyone's going to get to see it until September 10th, including Joe Burrow.
Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming game against the Commanders. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. Casey, I know you wrote an article, 3 big storylines in preseason, week 1, which this would be, against the Commanders. Number 1, can Cade York inspire confidence? Number 2, will a defensive tackle actually step up? And number 3, has DTR surpassed Kellen Mond on the depth chart? That would be as QB3. So take us through those and kind of just what you're looking at.
Well, the York ones, it's self-explanatory. Kicks, it's a miss or make proposition, and he did the one thing that he could not do. Get his first opportunity and just pull it. This team is too all in, too built to win now, to let the fact that they drafted a kicker drag them down. He's got to go out there and he has to make his kicks, point blank. If he goes out there and he's shaky at all, and they're not going to do anything right after the game because they're literally leaving Sunday for Philadelphia. But once they return from that trip, if he's shown that he cannot be counted on, they have to bring in another leg. If not just for competition, as a contingency plan, because you cannot allow that one guy to bring you down when he's easily replaceable.
Yeah, defensive tackle. There's Tomlinson, and then it's kind of like I said last year. There's going to be opportunities, and nobody took advantage of them.
Yeah. And we're still here, year 2, just pounding the table, going crazy here. And I still think it's kind of the same situation as York. I don't think that if something happens during this game, unless there's a major injury, I think they're going to roll with who they have to Philadelphia. But that'll be the ultimate proving ground. So they'll know when they get back from that trip if they have the player they need. But they just need somebody to show them something, a flash. Whether it's Maurice Hurst knocking some rust off. I think Sam Kamara has a huge opportunity in front of him right now, especially since he can play inside and outside. I think that's a guy that, 2 weeks ago wasn't on anyone's radar, but given the injury to Wright, and Wright was supposed to be that guy who could occasionally moonlight inside, he might be able to do that. I think this is a huge opportunity. It could prove well up against the run. It didn't really give you anything as a pass rush, but I don't think that's what he's there to do, at least immediately. But they need bodies, man. They need someone to be competent up there. If not, teams are going to know exactly how to handle this defense.
And Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I know it was, a vanilla defense, but he just looked like he belonged, I guess.
Yeah, he looked electric. That's how I'd put it. He just gave the offense life from the second he stepped on the field. And for me, like today, Stefanski came up and he said all 4 quarterbacks would play in the next game. It would be interesting to see if DTR gets the reps in front of Mond. If it were me, I wouldn't play Mond at all. I think getting DTR or Mond's reps would be a priority because the way that it's set up this year, your third quarterback doesn't count against your game day roster. It counts against your 53, but not the 48 you have dressing. So I think that getting him as up to speed as possible has got to be paramount because, he doesn't have to be the backup this year. That's the benefit they have. But they didn't draft him to be a third-string quarterback. They drafted him to be the eventual backup on this team. So just give the reps. I think that, between him and Dobbs, I think the rest of the preseason is going to be pretty fun, to be honest with you. Defenses are going to be pulling their hair out.
Yeah, I want to see more of him. I guess that's the ultimate compliment. You saw him play in the Hall of Fame game. I want to see more of him. Take a look at this. This is also from Jack Duffin, who we mentioned earlier. It's relative to Demetric Felton. So percentage of snaps in the backfield versus as a wide receiver. It kind of shows you the usage of Felton. Preseason 2021, 36% in the backfield, 13% as wide receiver. Last year, none in the backfield, 4% during the season. And then preseason, 91% in the backfield. I don't know how you felt. I felt a little bit better after seeing Demetric Felton. He looked like he could play running back.
Yeah, and he gives you a little something different. His ability to run out of shotgun was very impressive. And that's something they're going to need for whoever their third-string running back ends up being. He has good enough hands, and he has a different variation of routes that he can run. It isn't just, a swing or a screen. He can run Texas. He can run slants. He can do other things. So I just think it was a very good outing for him. But it was a good outing for all the running backs. John Kelly looked good. Hassan Hall looked good. Some of that's the offensive line, some of that's scheme. But it was good to see Demetric Felton actually get run at running back because this is his 8-mile moment. He's going to have to – this is his opportunity to make a team. And with the Jerome Ford injury, you're going to see a ton of Kelly and a ton of Felton in these next couple games. So they're going to get to prove if they need to make this team. They're going to get the opportunities to show that they belong.
So this is from the Bleacher Report. 2023 NFL roster bubble. Biggest names who could be cut. They go with Anthony Schwartz. Schwartz fumble Hall of Fame game certainly didn't help his cause. Releasing him would save $1.3 million in cap space, make room for a promising developmental player like Austin Watkins. Yeah, when I saw the fumble, I was like, oh no, you can't do that. Now he has come back and we've seen him make some nice catches during the week in Berea. But at some point, I know he's a third-round pick. If you're going to draft him that high, you got to give him time. But it's ticking. The clock is ticking on him.
When I bring up Anthony Schwartz, I just keep thinking of when is it time to cut your losses? Because, yes, you got draft capital invested in him. And I get why you did it, man. The kid's got blazing speed. You took a shot. I just think it's obvious at this point he's not who you need him to be. That speed doesn't do you any good because defenses don't have to acknowledge it. He's not good at tracking a football in the air. He can't hold on to it. He's not physical enough. It's just all the signs are there. And if they wind up keeping Schwartz, it'll make me question their process.
What do you think about Watkins? I think that's a guy, when they brought him in, I thought, maybe he can find his way onto the practice squad. The more I see of him, he could find a way to kind of sneak in there.
Yeah, the door's open. This is something 2-3 weeks ago wasn't on our radar. They signed him and he comes in and he's ready to play. He's been playing football all spring. He comes in football shape. He's making plays. He has the look to him, very promising. It's, especially with Dalen Baldwin going down with an injury, that kind of opens the door. What we don't know is what are their plans for Marquise Goodwin? Do they think he's going to be able to return or are they kind of writing that off? Because if they're writing it off, I think there's 5 locks at receiver. You add Jakeem Grant as a return man if he's fully healthy. You might have space for one more. That space might end up in Watkins' hands.
Yeah, and that's a good point relative to Grant. If Grant comes all the way back, he gives you some speed. You know, it's not as, you know, straight line like Goodwin, but he does fill the need for a deep, you know, a guy that can stretch the defense.
Yeah, stretch the defense, give you a gadget guy, and he's elite in the return game, which is something this team has desperately needed.
Casey Kinnamon, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out, Dog Pound Daily. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.